Tackling all forms of homelessness must be a priority for any government. Here in Scotland, we've made real progress in preventing homelessness, and we now have some of the strongest rights for homeless people anywhere in the world. But we know there's still a lot more to do. That's why, over the next few years, the Scottish Government is investing £3 billion in 50,000 affordable homes. And it's why we're determined to tackle the more complex causes of homelessness: relationship breakdown, substance dependency, and mental health issues. Of course, none of this can be achieved by government alone. We work closely with local government and our health service, and we rely on the dedication and expertise of charities like Crisis. Over its 50 years, Crisis has helped thousands of people get back on their feet and escape homelessness. It's provided fantastic advocacy for homeless people and has been at the forefront of proposing solutions. In your 50th anniversary year, I'm delighted to express my congratulations and my support for the fantastic work that Crisis does. And I know your efforts will continue as you develop your long-term plan to end homelessness for good. The Scottish Government has worked closely with you in the 18 years since devolution. Together, we've made a huge amount of progress. My pledge to you is that we will continue to work closely with you in the years ahead.
We can make ending homelessness a realistic prospect. In order to write such a plan, of course, we're going to need to answer the big questions of how different elements of homelessness can be prevented or solved. We'll seek the political commitments we need, the policies, the service interventions, and the changes in public responses to homelessness, and always looking for those interventions which have the very best evidence of success. And this can only be done by working in partnership and by deferring to the expertise of others. Our approach to producing a plan will be to collaborate with subject experts, whether they're experts by experience or whether they're experts by training, to gather the best evidence on how to end homelessness, or at the very least, to make it rare, brief, and non-recurrent. Clearly, it's not within our gift to prevent some of the triggers of homelessness, like relationships breaking down, people losing their jobs. But what we do know, with absolute certainty, is there is not a single homeless person whose situation cannot be resolved with the right support. Where we know homelessness is coming, we can prevent it. When homelessness does happen, we can deal with it quickly and permanently. And for those who've experienced homelessness for longer, there has never been more evidence of how to successfully get people into their own homes and off the streets for good.
So I think this is the really important part of the story. Why do I say a home and a job? Well, when I worked in social exclusion for the Cabinet Office many years ago, I came up, we had this problem about, well, what would a preventative approach to homelessness be? What would a preventative approach be? How do you sort of look at people on the street and say, how did they get there? And largely, how they got there was they left care, or they had a mental health problem, or they have learning difficulties, or that, there are a variety of reasons, but the real question is these are the hardest people for whom to get a home and the hardest people for whom to get a job. And unless we think about the employment story and the housing story together, we won't make the kind of progress that we need.
I think it was a very, very important example. We have in the world eradicated smallpox, and people thought that that was impossible. A guy called Donald Henderson, I think. Bill Gates is away working at the moment and trying to eradicate malaria and making quite a lot of progress in that. So I really believe that there's examples and inspiration out there that we can follow. But it requires a mindset. It requires a mindset change. It means that the sector that we're building, we're thinking about how do we get ourselves out of work, not how do we build our organizations to have more people. And that requires that mindset change. As quickly as possible. So some of the things that I would like to kind of throw in here as concepts that, some of which haven't been mentioned this morning, is one is, where is the business sector? Where is the private sector? Completely absent. And it should be part of that exit strategy. Huge amount of acumen, talent, money, etc. in that area. And what they shouldn't be doing is just saying, here's some money to charity, by the way. We actually need to engage them so that they're becoming part of the solution in areas in middle of cities where people are, and helping us work through that strategy, critical. Secondly, homeless people, former homeless people, need to be part of the leadership group. And so I find that that's really absent. So former homeless people will join organizations but not take on leadership roles, very, very seldomly. And yet, I find amongst the homeless communities that work all around the world, there are leaders there, and we need to encourage them and bring them to our organization and make them leaders because they're passionate and understand and will drive the change that we need.
But on days when the insanity of our politics is just stupefying, I remind myself that all around our country, and I'm sure here too, there are people who want the same thing for their communities. They want them to work. And on the ground, with a clear and inclusive invitation and the training to let people locally know how they can work differently, we see ideology really doesn't get in the way of progress. And it's an important story, I think, for another reason, because it's a challenge for those of us, I'm based in New York, who work in places with more abundant resources and more progressive values. Why are we in New York City that's spending $2.3 billion a year on homelessness, or San Francisco? Why aren't we getting the job of ending homelessness done? And it does raise the question of whether a large homelessness sector could contribute to the persistence of homelessness. Let's face it, because we've had to. Do our organizational issues conflict with the goal of ending homelessness? And I think it's important that those of us in the sector always be considering this. So, in closing and before I show the video, let me be respectfully provocative here, because we all know ending homelessness is urgent. And I saw in yesterday's paper that there are 39 individuals here in Glasgow who've died on the street in the last 10 months. And frankly, with the extraordinary culture of performance and outcomes in the public sector here in Scotland, and the network of partners who are working so effectively to make quality of life here in the country second to none, I'd say the question for Scotland is not, can you end homelessness, but what is keeping you from ending homelessness?
It's been interesting. In the last 12 months, I've now been at two conferences where one of our amazing colleagues from North America has made some comments about where we stand on homelessness. Tim Richter, who's the chief executive of the Canadian National Alliance to End Homelessness, said 12 months ago, if it can happen anywhere in the world, it can happen in the UK. And no, Roseanne has kindly echoed that with why hasn't it happened? Why haven't we made those final steps? I wouldn't have been quite so bold as to say that, but thankfully Roseanne did. So I think the commitment, certainly from Crisis, is that we will play our part. This is something we need to do together, but we'll certainly play our part in working together to, I think, to use Mel Young's phrase, to create an exit strategy for the homelessness sector. So I look forward to working with you over the coming year.